to do to achieve a desired outcome may not please you while you're doing it. Jogging miles to reduce your waistline or saving more money and spending less won't necessarily make you feel better on any given day. One fine day, though, when your waistline is at the trim target you've chosen and you've become the svelte version of yourself, or your savings account has grown to a healthy balance, you begin to understand that less than pleasing means contributed to the highly pleasing outcome. One way to tackle procrastination is to approach the issue from a different perspective. When Tom Wolfe, the novelist with those dapper all-white wardrobes, was working for Esquire magazine, and he was already past the deadline on an article, his editor gave him a wonderful suggestion. Wolfe was to start writing a letter to the editor describing how he would approach the article and what he would put in it. So he submitted a draft that started like a letter. Sure enough, by eliminating the first paragraph or two and retaining the body of what Wolfe had written, the editor had the requisite material. Like Wolfe, you may not have trouble with a task, but simply with starting. By approaching your task in a different way, it may become a whole lot easier to handle. Number 2, face procrastination head on. When faced with too many things to accomplish, your natural inclination often is to procrastinate. Don't beat yourself up if you find yourself procrastinating a bit more these days. Many people are experiencing the same thing. Tasks that might normally seem mundane appear more difficult when there's too much on your plate. By the way, there's too much on your plate. If you're candid with yourself and acknowledge when you're procrastinating, then you're that much closer to taking action. Even the weeniest action in pursuit of a long-term goal is far better than nothing. When push comes to shove, and here comes a shove, sometimes your best approach to procrastination is to simply face it head on by searching for what's blocking you. In other words, what's the real reason you can't get started? In her 1980 book, Creative Procrastination, Organizing Your Life, author Frida Porat offers a host of reasons why people can't get started, including fear of disapproval, failure, making mistakes, or being wrong, sticking your neck out, being noticed, or not being noticed, confronting the unknown, committing yourself, or exposing your inadequacies, taking on too difficult a task, getting into trouble, or being less than perfect, being rejected, being on the wrong side, or getting criticized. Does one or more of these issues ring true for you? If so, your quest is to find the root cause of that fear. Did something happen on an earlier project or an earlier job, or even earlier in life, that's prohibiting you from getting back on the horse? Do you fear that you won't do a good enough job or that you'll fail if you try? If so, keep in mind that if the task is vital, it's worth starting, even if you do fail. So, allow yourself to have less than a gracious start. Progress is not always even. Anticipate some level of breakdown and backsliding. 2 steps forward and 1 step back is more often the rule than the exception. That brings us to number 3, which is reframe the challenge. If you've ever seen Kenneth Branagh's movie, Henry V, you may recall his enactment of a miraculous redirection in military history. Greatly outnumbered by the French at the Battle of Agincourt, Henry offered a speech so stirring and inspiring that his troops fought with a vigor transcending any previous effort. King Henry spoke of the glory of England and how history would look back on that day. By doing such, he reframed his troops' view of the forthcoming event as not merely a battle with the odds stacked against them, but as one of the greatest encounters of history. Win or lose, his men would forever be remembered as valiant soldiers. So too we hear of coaches who give halftime pep talks that turn their teams around and enable the team to achieve victory. In general, unpleasant tasks don't tend to get any more pleasant with the passage of time. Certain tasks delayed, such as cleaning out the stables, get much worse over time. If you have to do something, you might as well take care of it now. There's often no advantage in putting the task off. Reframe the task, however seemingly mundane, as something contributing to your long-term prosperity, growth, career advancement, or domestic tranquility, and you'll be far more productive. Generally, it's not the task that's vital, but what the task represents, such as keeping your word, displaying your professionalism, maintaining personal discipline, serving as a model for others, or breaking past old barriers. Closely related to tip number 3 is tip number 4, relate the meaning of your task to something larger. In his book, Everything I Ever Needed to Know I Learned in Kindergarten, author Robert Fulghum discusses a bricklayer who merely goes about his business while other workers seem to be plodding. When this buoyant laborer is asked how he can be so cheerful toiling all day long in the hot sun while his colleagues seem to be less than excited about their work, he says, "They are laying bricks. I'm helping to build a cathedral to celebrate the glory of God." Who knows whether or not this story is true or even if the bricklayer was sane. The point behind it is well taken. Whenever you face a task you'd rather put off, find the greater meaning behind the task. If you're part of a team at work, the task you've been assigned may seem tedious and even uninspiring. Yet your performance will surely affect your team, and what the team does will surely affect the division or department, etc. So, grab a piece of paper and sketch out a simple diagram or flowchart of how your contribution impacts those around you, how their contribution impacts others, and so on. Keeping that perspective in mind, those mornings when you'd rather not begin to work on a particular task seem to vanish. In your career, the types of tasks and projects that you handle undoubtedly affect other larger things. Come on, you know they do. Identify those issues and you'll have a far easier time getting started day after day, even when it would be oh so inviting to simply put things off for a while. Tip number 5, reflect on past successes. When I moved to Chapel Hill, North Carolina, one of the first things I wanted to do was visit the Dean Smith Center. Named after the former Hall of Fame coach, it's where the University of North Carolina men's basketball team plays its home games, and where they used to win far more than they lost. Each of the 21,572 seats has a marvelous view of the court. There are no posts, no banners, or other obstructions. The sound system is wonderful. No reverberation or static, simply clear, crisp tones of the speaker. None of that muffled loudspeaker babble that you can never understand. The lighting is perfect, as is the scoreboard, the ventilation system, and virtually all other aspects of the building. As impressive as this structure is, even more notable is what hangs from the rafters. Retired jerseys of former UNC basketball greats and the championship banners acknowledging successful seasons. You'd think that having such banners installed would have been old hat to a coach like Dean Smith, who accumulated more victories in his career than any other college basketball coach. Yet, whether it's an Atlantic Coast Conference regular season championship, tournament championship, NCAA tournament participation, second round, Sweet 16, Final 8, semifinals, finals, or even an NCAA championship, which happened in '82 and '93, everything the UNC Tar Heels have accomplished hangs from the rafters for all to see. Okay, so how does this relate to you? If you have trouble getting started on something, review evaluations and letters of praise you may have received from others within your organization, as well as those from external sources. Also, think about the time you had trouble getting started in the past. What happened once you finally got started, and how good it felt once you accomplished what you set out to accomplish. If you can reread your kudos, or evoke those same feelings of satisfaction, happiness, and accomplishment, you may have the winning formula for getting started on a troublesome task. Hey, did I mention what a great listener you are? Number 6, visualize yourself succeeding gracefully. Suppose you have to prepare for an after-dinner speech and you hate public speaking.